Let's me start it.
Okay, we can start, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
A very good afternoon, one and all present here today. I'm Dr. Sushma Lokhande from MIT College of Management and Computer Applications. On behalf of Honorable Professor Dr. Mangesh Karat sir, Executive President and Pro Chancellor, MIT ADT University, Pune, and our source of inspiration, Honorable Professor Dr. Surita Karat ma'am, Executive Director, MIT ADT University, we welcome all the students and faculty members present here today for the webinar on building agri startups and food brands. Before we start this webinar, uh, the webinar on building agri startup and food brands focus on transforming innovative agricultural ideas into successful business. It covers key aspects such as identifying market opportunities, developing value-added products, branding, marketing strategies, funding opportunities, and scaling agri enterprises. This session inspires participants to explore entrepreneurship and build sustainable, customer focused food brands. So, as per the tradition of MIT ADT University, I request everyone to kindly rise for the World Peace Prayer, that is Vishwa Shanti Prarthana. I request the technical team to please play the prayer. सर वॉल्यूम नहीं आ रहे हैं. Thank you, sir. Next is about MIT ADT University. MIT ADT University is a state private university established as per the Government and University Act. It offers innovative programs in art, design, and technology and has been awarded the Best Indian University Campus by ASSOCHAM at the 10th National Education Excellence Award 2017. In its very first cycle, MIT ADT University has proudly secured an A grade from NAC, which speaks volume of its commitment to quality education and excellence. Let us now experience the vision and vibrancy of our below university. Let's watch a short film about our university. I request the technical team to kindly play the university AV.
economy is driven by innovation-led entrepreneurship. The Indian youth aspires to take up this challenge and contribute to India's GDP. MIT, Art, Design and Technology University, Pune is a place for such aspiring innovators and entrepreneurs. MIT ADT University is a leading futuristic multidisciplinary university with a unique blend of art, design and technology programs, which prepares its students for the future through its cutting-edge programs and grooms them for their prospective workplace through holistic education. The university, in a short span, has been recognized as a distinctive university delivering unparalleled academic excellence under the dynamic, foresighted leaders, enablers and Professor Dr. Vishwanath Karad, founder MIT Group of Institutions, and Professor Dr. Karad, Executive President, with her vast and influential network, extensive research and thoughtful approach, Professor Dr. Mangesh Karad has been instrumental in designing and customizing new out-of-the-box specialized UG programs, super specialized programs and initiatives in keeping up with the prevailing employment trends and industry demands. Engineering education at the university, along with the usual engineering branches, offers myriads of specialization like AI, blockchain, cybersecurity and forensics, cloud computing, aerospace, robotics, bioengineering, food technology, marine engineering and nautical science, to name a few. MIT School of Holistic Development transforms students into winning personalities, inculcating in them resilience to face the challenges of the globalized world. Thus, performing and creative arts, communication skills, physical fitness, foreign languages, literature, intercultural studies, seva, spiritual and value education are integral parts of the curriculum. MIT School of Corporate Innovation and Leadership offers bridge courses in professional, soft skills, behavioral skills, employability enhancement skills, quantitative aptitude, logical reasoning and verbal ability based on industry requirements.
Center of Research and Innovation for Young Kriya has been established with an intention to cultivate scientific temper among students by motivating them to understand and innovate in science, technology, engineering, arts and design.
Semester-wise project-based learning is adopted in the university, and every year best projects or ideas are selected and developed into products for commercialization at this center. Majorly considering the need to usher India in entrepreneurship, MIT ADT University took a lead and established Atal Incubation Center on the campus and is the first state-private university in Maharashtra to have recognition from Niti Aayog, Government of India. The university has not only positively embraced technologies that drive Industry 4.0, including AI and robotics, but also redesigned the centuries-old model of education for the benefit of students, faculty and staff by adopting digital transformation right from admission process to ERP system. The university was among the first few ones to conduct proctored examinations and declared results on time for students' benefit. MIT ADT University is admitted to embarking on the journey of empowering its students to lead a meaningful and fulfilling life through an inclination for innovation, having a temperament of compassion for the world around and a passion to become risk-takers, entrepreneurs by remaining deeply rooted in human values. MIT ADT University is one of the front-runners in the field of higher education, mobilizing all its resources to provide excellent infrastructure conducive for quality learning experiences in a vibrant atmosphere through our research labs and established tie-ups with leading industries. The state-of-the-art sports complex at the university offers an amazing array of sports clubs to choose from and provide regular coaching and training to impart the virtues of integrity and value system. We heartily welcome you all to this new generation university where the pursuit of excellence begins.
Thank you, sir. Next, I would like to introduce the guest speaker for today's Professor Srinivas Moharir, sir. Professor Srinivas Moharir, sir, is a professor of practice at MIT ADT University, Pune, and founder of Mohalab and growth partner at Value eLab Business Consultancy. Professor Srinivas Moharir is a business growth strategist, startup mentor, innovation consultant, and educator with over 25 years of leadership experience in the IT and banking sectors, followed by more than 80 years of mentoring startup entrepreneurs and SMEs. He is the founder of Moha Labs, helping entrepreneurs build and scale successful ventures through innovation and strategic business consulting. He also served as a growth partner at Value eLab, chief innovation consultant at XB Beyond Industry, mentor at Mentor AI. He also visiting faculty at leading universities teaching innovation, entrepreneurship, AI data, transformation, and gamification. Professor Srinivas is a passionate about helping individuals and business innovate, grow, and create sustainable value, enabling them to become future ready in an evolving business landscape. Sir, we are glad to have you amongst us today and we welcome you this webinar. So I request you to kindly take over today's webinar.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sushma, ma'am.
Thank you,
Uh,
sir. Welcome, sir.
okay, hello everyone, and thanks for the nice introduction, Dr. Sushma, ma'am. So basically, I'm a startup enthusiast. Wherever I go, I look at opportunities where I can meet people who are keen to start their own entrepreneurship journey through startups. And secondly, I'm also an innovation enthusiast. I've studied innovation deeply. So two things that really inspire me are startups and innovation. So in today's webinar, I'm going to give you a little bit of practical insights of what this whole world of startups and innovation means. And given that this is in the context of an agri-tech or a food tech kind of a setup, I would also like to give you more information about these two industries and give my insights around that. So what I'll do is I'll be sharing a quick presentation which will allow me to give you some, kind of a context. So that's why I'll just start my presentation here and let me know if you can see it. Okay. So are you able to see it now?
Yes, sir. Just
And
play it on full screen mode.
sure. Okay. Fine. So let's get started. Srinivas Moore, basically, I am a professor of practice at MIT ADT. I also teach at multiple other universities like Flame and Indira and also Balaji. I'm a founder at Moha Labs. My intention of starting a startup advisory firm was I realized that a lot of us have ambitions to build our own startups, but we require a lot of discipline to actually make the startup successful. Now, by the way, you will realize one more thing when during my talk that not necessarily all startups are going to succeed. Of course, there are certain recipes that are required, but it's okay to fail. Failure is also like a learning journey. So if startups do fail, I think it's also a good thing because in India, the culture of failure is seen as a negative. But frankly speaking, if you look at any startup ecosystem that is thriving, whether it is, in the Silicon Valley, whether it is in Israel, or whether it is in London, or for that matter, even in Bangalore, many of the startups initially have failed. The founders have failed and they have, taken up and pivoted into new ways of coming up with newer ideas and newer startup businesses. So I'm going to share in this webinar a few of the tips of starting an agro or a food tech startup. Uh, Let me admit that I'm not an agriculture or a food expert, but I'm more of a startup and innovation expert. So I will take it from that aspect, and I hope you will find this webinar, insightful. Let's start with an inspiration. I don't know how many of you have heard this company. It's a brand today called Farmly. Now, many of you probably have heard other brands like Paperboat or Happy Low. Now, these are the
So
competitions of
just a
Farmly.
request. Can you reshare your presentation because it's not on a full screen mode?
Okay, let me reshare. Is it fine now?
No, sir.
Not yet.
Just stop sharing and reshare again.
Okay. Stop share. Is it okay now? Resume.
Okay, sir.
Fine?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was basically wanting you to get inspired by this brand called Farmly. Now, Farmly was actually started as a startup company in 2017, and their aim was to actually fix certain deep-rooted inefficiencies in the dry fruits and nut supply industry, the supply chain around that. And today they are close to a 370 crore revenue making company, and they've already secured a third round of Series C funding from one of the investors. Now, what is it that they must have done if we look back is what we'll probably quickly run through in our webinar today. So tomorrow, you can take inspiration from the founders like Farmly, and you can also start your own startup. So the whole idea is, what is it that the other startups do well? How do they approach right from the beginning? And how do they get to this level? Now, this is what we are going to discuss today in the webinar. And I don't know, sir, if we're going to have opportunity to ask questions. We can take it up later, but I'll just carry on with the presentation. Okay, so can you see my next slide? It's called what is the focus of agri and food startups in today's
Sir,
world?
not visible actually.
Okay. Let me stop share again and start. Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay. Looks like I have to keep on not the full screen mode, but this one. Okay. In terms of what is the focus of today's agri and food startups, let's delve into this a little bit more on this picture. See, in today's context, most of the agri-tech and food tech startups are looking at uh, how they can add digital value around the things that are happening in the farm itself or during the supply chain of the various food products, and as well as at the final destination on the consumer side. So most of the agri-tech innovations are today focusing all their ideas or solutions and innovations on these three primary areas. So I'll repeat. One is around the farm. So for example, how do you increase the farm's productivity? How do you make sure that we get maximum yield from a particular area of the farm? What sort of crops are going to be more relevant from the perspective of consumer consumption? So most of the startups are focusing on farm related innovations which are happening in the farm. That's the first part. The next is around bypassing the middlemen or looking at the supply chain. So there are startups which are focusing on this area wherein they're looking at what can I do, what can I innovate in the supply chain aspect of trying to make sure that the goods or products that are produced in the farm are properly getting delivered to the right places. Of course, there's a lot of innovations also, by the way, happening in processing the food. So, by making some processing hub, which is more like tech savvy or more relevant to the current needs of the industry or current needs of the consumer, more and more processing hub innovations are also happening. And finally, of course, as I said, the last mile demand and supply. So all the Blinkits and the Zeptos and the Swiggies, in a way, are the last mile delivery innovations that you have seen, which have really taken off in the Indian market so far. So I hope you have an idea of what and where the agri-tech startups are focusing on. Coming down to the food tech startup, not very different from agri-tech startup, but basically most of the food tech innovations are happening around how do I make sure that I get my food products right from the farm to fork meaning the spoon and fork that we use for eating. How do you make sure that you get the best quality with the most uh, chemical free sustainable products that are made available to the final consumer is what the food tech industries are actually starting up. So most of the innovations are happening in this area. So again here, let me reiterate. The first is how do you produce something which is more of a hyper local micro cultivated platform scenario. For example, you can actually create startups which are focusing completely niche on just ketchups, for example, or diet products like resins, or it could be anything that has got to do with the diet meals that are required for either student community or elderly community. So focusing on food products that are very niche in manner is something that the startups are focusing on. The next is around reducing food waste. Most of the, or rather, the top priority that the food tech innovators are trying to solve problems are around food waste. Most of the problem that is today in the food industry is how to reduce food waste. So if there are any innovations or startups, I think they are the best bet that you can go ahead with. Then, of course, the whole transparent value chain. How do you make sure that you bring a carbon neutral, direct to consumer kind of protocol in your startup? So that is another thing that most of the startup innovations are happening. And finally, the most common ones that you are aware of, you have marketplace portals today, which are actually selling um on online platforms the food products. So this is where the innovations are happening. I hope you have an idea of where the agri and food tech innovations are happening. And if you can focus on some of these problem statements or these opportunities, you will have a good, I would say, success rate of ensuring that you build a good and successful startup. Now, having said that, let me change the whole topic to emphasize on the startup scene. See, this applies to any startup for that matter. Most of the startup founders focus on their idea or their solution, which is right here. But it's not about the idea or the solution because the customers don't care about your solution. They really care about their problems. So, as long as you are solving a customer's problem, then you're actually getting it right. We all think that startups are about innovations and ideas. Yes, they are. But more importantly, they're about what is the problem that you're solving for the customers and what's the value that you're creating. So this is a typical what is called as a startup lean canvas model. I would encourage you to follow a person called Ash Maurya. He is the originator and author of Startup Lean Canvas model. Um, so if you feel that you are very passionate about starting something, try and follow him. He has a very good knowledge base of various articles and business models that will help startup enthusiasts to get going, get started. Okay. The next one, most of the slides that I'm going to show here, they're not related to the earlier slides. So this is a completely, again, new slide, new picture. Now, if we were to start a startup with typically an agri-tech or a food tech startup, I would like you to focus on 5 layers. Now, these are very important 5 layers. Unless and until you get these 5 layers right, you will not be able to build a successful startup. Now, I'll tell you where all the startup founders fail during the journey, and you will realize that these are very, very important and key layers. While everybody starts with some sort of a passion, or because startup today is a very kind of a fashionable word, and everybody thinks that it's easy to get started. But do you know that 90% of the startups, even more than that, fail? There's very less chances of startups really which are successful. So the first layer I want you to focus, which is right at the bottom here, we need to first understand as to how to search a problem or an opportunity which affects a user or a customer base. Now, in the context of an agri or a food tech, you can start with either rural farmers, or you can start with, the urban customers. You need to understand the users that are actually having problems. Now, I always keep telling startup founders and startup teams is when you start looking at the problem, don't just look at the problem from outside, own that problem. When I say own that problem means you should feel as though that problem is yours. You need to feel the pain of the problem. See, unless and until you don't feel the pain of the problem, you are not actually starting on a proper startup journey. If you're trying to solve a problem, fine, but having deep understanding of the problem, researching that problem further. Some of the techniques like the design thinking are quite useful, in understanding and empathizing with the users, but always start with researching the problem or researching the opportunity. Now, in the meantime, you should also know whom are you going to solve the problem. And by the way, very important for startups, who is going to pay for the solution for that problem? Because it's not just about solving a problem. Like, we're not solving a hungry related problem, or we're not solving the poverty problem here and having a startup. We need to have ultimately a paying customer base. So need to be very clear from the beginning, what's the problem or the opportunity that we are aiming for? What are the users that are affected by that problem, because of which if we solve and give a solution to that problem, they'll feel better. They'll feel that they are getting value. And by the way, are there paying customers for that solution? Without a paying customer base, your foundation of the startup is shaky. We should spend almost to the tune of, I would say, 50 to 60% time of our startup journey initially just identifying and researching the problem. Because if you solve this first layer well, you are 90% sure that you're going to be on the right track. So I hope we all understand the importance of You're identifying a problem, owning that problem, understanding the user, and a paying customer base. Now, once that you have sorted out what is the problem, you have realized, okay, what could be the potential users and customers, we'll start, of course, start building the solutions around it. Now, this is where your ideas come in the picture. Many of us immediately jump into ideas like, let me create an app, let me create a mobile, you know, application on App Store or Play Store, or let me create some sort of a website. Well, these are not the way we should approach startup solutions. A startup solution at the end of the day should be a proper, perfect business model. Let me reiterate this. You need to have an end-to-end understanding of how your solution will work with the users, will provide solution to the users, how will you make money from the customers, and how will you make profit in the whole game. So it's not about just building a typical idea or a solution. But of course, when it comes to building some prototypes or lightweight solutions, you can do that. But even for that, always keep in mind you need to have a proper understanding of the entire business model. So you may come up with few ideas. Now the way to come up with few ideas is like you can work with yourself, your team, your initial founding team. You can work with some of the co-partners or co-teams with other engineering teams or design teams if you're in a college. If you're already in a startup ecosystem, you can work with certain other experts or incubators that are out there in the industry or in the ecosystem. If you're already into a business and you can have this ideas being worked with your customers, your suppliers, and your entire ecosystem partners. But let's focus on just building these startup ideas with respect to, let's say, in a college environment or in a university environment. Now, here in the university environment, you can actually build prototypes with the help of the university labs. MIT has wonderful labs for innovation and startups. In fact, we have our own setup called KRIA, which is an innovation lab which helps you to ideate, and we also help you with initial funding. So, university ecosystem is something that you can explore when it comes to building your ideas. Now, don't start with just one idea and go with that with the customer. You never know which is a good idea or a bad idea. So maybe you can go with the customers with a potential few ideas uh, and validate those ideas with what we call as early customers. Now, I'm going to obviously take you through a case study so that you understand what I'm saying. Uh, don't go with one idea, go with a couple of ideas at least, and try and test these ideas with your customers. Once the customers are understanding how their problems are getting solved, they'll soon start realizing that, okay, there is some gem in your idea. There is some, whiz in your idea, or that your idea or your solution makes sense. Once that happens, slowly you should start building a revenue pipeline. Now, you might say that why am I focusing or trying to tell you this is important? In your startup journey, don't stop at the idea stage. In fact, ideation is just 1%. I repeat, ideation is just 1%. 99% of the work is yet to be done, which is the implementation of the startup. And the implementation of the startup is about getting in the market and trying to build a proper revenue pipeline. Many of us make a big mistake of thinking that startup is just about an idea, that to my idea or my solution. Nobody cares about your solution. Actually, the customers should be there They should be able to pay for your solution, and you need to start building a pipeline for that. That's very important. And finally, the whole startup game, I think you all know, is not about like any pop and mom shop out there or a grocery shop. You all know startups are there so that tomorrow they attract investors. The whole idea of a startup is that they would like to attract investors down the line so that they can make it big. Most of the startup story ends with an IPO or a exit or a takeover, as you all know. But during the journey, you will have different types of investors that you will have to talk to, which I will again cover. But at the end of the day, I want you to understand these 5 layers. I'll repeat again, understand the problem and your users, and of course, paying customers. Come up with a few ideas and solutions, not just one. Validate those ideas with customers or early customers and come up with some sort of a pilot or a minimum viable product. Build a revenue pipeline for your solution so that you have more and more money coming in into your startup. This is where the investors will start getting attracted. And finally, you will be able to get more investors so that your startup can grow and scale. These are the startup layers that everybody has to understand. Okay. I would like to just, based on my experience, give you a guru mantra on how to build these 5 layers. You may think that those 5 layers are a bit complex or whatever. So I would like to give you a quick guru mantra. And this is a term that I have only coined. It's something that I have realized. Now, I'm from the city of Pune, and I have always been fascinated that Pune has been an educational hub. Uh, Pune has something that has a lot of MSCs and small scale and medium scale industries, even large scale industries. But as a startup ecosystem, I think Bangalore and even for that matter Noida, Gurgaon has more startups than Pune. So I always was in my doubt saying, what is that we can do or I can do to get something out of the Pune crowd to get them more into the startup ecosystem. So I've come up with the Puneri startup mantra. It is in line with the 5 layers. The Puneri startup mantra says that understand the problem and pain of your users. First, understand that. There could be opportunities also coming up from that problem, and hence focus on the problem and pain. That's the first part. Next, as we discussed, understand whom are you going to solve the problem for, your users, and who are going to pay for your solution if you are able to solve the problem for the users. So these are all important aspect of the Puneri startup mantra. The next, I talked about the new ideas and solutions, not just one idea, come up with multiple ideas. Don't get bogged down with that one platform idea or an app idea or whatever you think is the best idea. You never know which ideas will resonate with your customers and your users. So be open-minded, try and be flexible in your approach and come up with as many ideas that you can, and then start validating those ideas with what I call as the early adopters. See, in the whole startup ecosystem, you will realize that since you're not very famous in the beginning, getting customers are very, very tough. But there will be a few customers who are going to be your early adopters. They are the innovators in that sense that they will be able to try and test your solution. So try and get those early adopters in the mix, and using them and the network that you can create using the early adopters, try and build a revenue and growth pipeline for your startup. And finally, the I is the pinnacle of stage that startup always dreams of, How do I get investors and funding? Once you reach that stage, you can say that now I've become a startup ready business. Most of the startups think that by coming up with ideas, I'm done with it. No, you have to grow that startup and you have to attract as many investors so that your startup keeps growing. So let us see how the family case study makes sense here. Now, if you look at what is the problem that or opportunity that they sensed in family, they looked at the fragmented dry fruit supply chain. They also looked at the middleman exploitation and also the quality volatility that is there in the dry fruit supply chain industry. So they looked at this problem or the opportunity and they came up with some ideas as to what can I do to actually make sure that I have a proper uh, full scale value added chain that I can build in the family case, startup. So they came up with a full stack sourcing and matching protocol. They used IoT and a lot of technologies, and they came up with a digital twin or a lightweight technology platform that actually helps the overall supply chain of getting the dry fruits and various products right to the customer from where it is produced. So they figured out different ideas. Now, initially they were actually a B2B platform. So, they validated the ideas with early customers. They came up with some uh, initial sandbox and institutional ideas. They pivoted it with a few businesses, and they realized that they were making very thin margins. And slowly and steadily, they realized that the only idea that is actually making sense is when they make a proper D2C brand like today they are. So earlier they started with a supply chain solving problem, but today the startup family has pivoted or changed their strategy to become more of a D2C, means direct to consumer brand, a food brand, family food brand. So of course it has taken them time, right from 2017 to today 2026. It was a journey for them, and they realized that whatever was their original problem, they've stayed with that problem, but then during course of the solution finding, they pivoted to something like food brand, which is Farmly today, and which is more of a high margin subscription model today. So because of which they're able to attract a lot of investors, right from the VCs and private equity funding they're getting. So the whole story of Farmly says that they have looked at these 5 layers, and each layer they have crossed one after the other successfully. That is the story that I wanted to tell you from a Farmly case study with respect to the 5 layers. Okay. Uh, Sir, how much time do we have? Got another 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to emphasize on one very important aspect which I have learned during my uh, advisory role for startups. I just want you to also focus on not just your idea or your solution. Ultimately, your startup, if it has to be successful, you need to understand 3 very critical ingredients of a successful startup. Now, you peel open any successful startup, whether it is a global startup or an Indian startup or a Bangalore-based startup or a Pune-based startup, you will realize that there are 3 critical components. So the first is the product. Now, what do I mean by the product? Now, if you all thought that the idea was the basic ingredient of a startup, well, my answer is no. Your idea is not the startup. The product that you are actually developed in that startup business the business model is the product that I'm referring to. So initially, your product, whether it could be a platform, it could be a goods, or it could be a supply chain, it could be any innovation, doesn't matter. As long as it is solving a problem, then we call it that the product is problem solution fit. That's the first critical ingredient that you need to understand. Any startup, based on my previous slides that I showed you, the first thing you need to aim for is to come up with a product which is problem solution fit. What does that mean? In our agri or food tech context, try and come up with a solution which can solve problem for users and there are paying customers. As simple as that. Okay. So you first focus on that. So your first part is to focus on the product which is problem solution fit. Next, your product should slowly gravitate to a product market fit. What does that mean? Basically, it means that you need to reach a stage where you don't have to worry about selling your product or solution. The market starts pulling. There's so much demand for your solution or your product that you are actually scratching your brains saying, how do I service my customer now? There's so much demand. You need to come to that stage. Once you reach a stage where your products are in demand, your startup product is in demand, that is called product market fit. This is very, very important in the startup journey. Everybody feels that once I build a startup, I have a great idea, I have an app, or I have a product, I have a good, or I have an innovation. But unless and until there is proper demand for it, continuous demand for it, there is no point in having that startup. So you need to come to a stage where your startup has reached a product market fit. Okay. Then the third very, very important ingredient of the product is called the growth profit fit. Uh, I told you, right? Every startup dreams of building the business to a stage where investors start coming in. That is the ultimate aim of startups. They want to grow to an extent where they can either expand using investor money, they can grow by making money by just exiting and pivoting and doing something else. So, most of the founders, including Elon Musk for that matter, every time he is growing a particular business and trying to attract more investors, sometimes he exits from that business and makes money and puts that money to some other business and so on. So every founder, every startup founder is actually looking at growing the startup business to an extent where it makes profit and starts attracting investors. By the way, I'll tell you what the investors really look at. Most of the investors are looking at, can your startup business grow 100 times in the next 5 years? Sometimes they might even look at 1,000 times. But basically, they're looking at the growth story. So the whole idea is, how do you attract investors for your product, for your startup? That's called the product entering in the growth profit fit area. Two other components or critical components, but I don't want to focus too much on it. First is the people. It's very important that you, as the founder or the co-founder, make sure that you have the right team in place. So you may start with your own founding team. It may be one person or two-person, but nothing happens with one or two-person nowadays. So make sure you have a core team which has all the interdisciplinary skills. Now, universities like MIT are the best place for you to try a startup in your university days, because it helps you to build a core team with different interdisciplinary skills. Once you have your founding team and the core team, you can slowly start acquiring talent in your startup journey and build some sort of ecosystem so that you have more and more right people in your organization. And finally, of course, you can scale your organization depending on how small or big you want your startup organization to be. And the last critical component, which I think I've already discussed, is the power of money. You can start with your own money. You can bootstrap it, as they call it, or you can do some pilot funding. I told you MIT University, if it's a good startup idea with a good potential, it gives some seed money through our incubation Kriya lab. So there is one opportunity for you to get bootstrapped, or initial funding is possible. But typically you require some your own money to get fund into your startup, or some sort of a pilot funding. You can also, by the way, borrow from friends and family, but you need some money to get started. No investors will come to you unless and until you have reached the product market fit, which I told you, right? Once you have a product market fit, that's when you can start asking money from angel investors. These are individual angel investors who are NRI, or high net worth individuals who are risk or ready to risk their money in putting their belief that your startup will tomorrow succeed. The success rate of those risky instruments, they know, are very low, but that is how the angel investors are. They bet on a certain startups thinking that they will one day grow and they'll be able to make 10x money, or whatever 50x their investment. And finally, of course, venture capitalists, these are big firms which are ready to invest in your company, in your startup, and that's the ideal stage that you want to be when it comes to startups or building a startup. This is my last slide before I wind up. I thought I'll just give you food for thought based on my experience. When is the best time to start a startup? Okay. I've evaluated three options for you. Of course, you are free to choose whichever option is deemed fit for you. The first option that you have in front of you is you build your startup during college days, which I call it the foundation builder. Do you know many of these startups, including the one that you have in Google, or for that matter, Meta, all of these founders have started and in fact dropped from their college and build their startups. So you know their story, so I don't have to tell about them. So college days, you have the lowest risk, but at the same time, you have maximum agility. You can build and validate your MVP, which is the minimum viable product in your startup journey, using the university ecosystem, university labs, university sandboxes. But of course, you do have limited industry and market insight, and this is where people like me, or faculty which is out there at MIT can help you to get your startup going. So that is the one stage that you can get your startup started. Second is predominantly what you can do is you can start a startup after a 2-year stint or 3-year stint of your job. You will actually get some cross-functional or operational experience in a particular domain or a business or industry, because you know how, let's say, a particular FMCG industry works, or how does a food production unit works. So you can work there for 2 years, a couple of years, and then leverage that corporate insight to solve a specific high friction point problem and build your startup around that. Of course, you are at a very critical stage in your financial journey. I understand that. So you will obviously have a loss of guaranteed income and so on. But that's another uh, time that you can take a shot at. And finally, I've seen people taking a shot at startup after the age of 40. That is when by when they would have acquired deep expertise about their knowledge of their industry. They also have, by the way, built some good credibility, because of which investors will be able to come to you and be able to be comfortable investing in your startup. Of course, you can unleash your venture scale growth there, because you can apply corporate management principles, whatever that you've learned. Because today you may learn in MBA certain theoretical concepts, but experience will actually have taught you a lot many things. So that is the stage where you can also build your own startup. But if you ask me, if which one do I choose? Unfortunately, during my time, 30 years ago, when I was studying at Ferguson College or Pune University, I was also doing MBA. There was nothing like an innovation ecosystem available for me. Uh, Most of you students are lucky today that you have universities like MIT, which helps you to build a startup. And if you can build an agri or food tech startup based on your specialization during your college days or university days and be successful, nothing like it, because you don't have to really look for a job. You can actually give jobs to others. With that, I hope you got good insights and practical tips from my side. And that's all. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. So,
Thank
sir,
you, sir.
over to you.
Sir, I have one question.
Sure, ma'am.
What are the biggest challenges faced by the first-time agri startup founders in India?
See, the biggest challenge is to really understand the problem on the opportunity, as I told you, because we don't research it well.
Okay.
So, see, let's assume that 5 years down the line you're going to build a successful startup. Let's assume that. So, what is the first thing that you should actually crack as per my 5-layer strategy? The problem, right? So, unless and until you don't hit the right problem with the right user base and the right customer base, then you have not understood the startup journey. So, the biggest problem the startup founders face today is identifying the problem itself.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
एक बार वो ठीक से हो गया ना मैम, I think the rest, there is a proper ecosystem available and you should have proper discipline. It will be done, but
Yes.
major is to identify the problem.
Problems.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, means there are a lot of chances of failures.
Yeah.
So how we can avoid the failure in early traction?
Good question, sir. In fact, I would say, and I keep repeating, failure is something that has to be seen as a learning, right? It is guaranteed that there will be failures. But what one can do is, given that, the whole startup ecosystem has matured a lot, uh, at every stage, you can look at what sort of external help that you can get. For example, you can have a, kind of a startup mentor help you to navigate your startup journey. That could be one. Okay. Second is you can register yourself in an incubation center and literally follow a discipline that the incubation and the accelerator allows you to run the startup properly. Right. That is the second one. And third, sir, I think I would say is very important. The reason we all fail is we don't own the problem. Once you own the problem, make it very, very kind of personal to you as founders. For example, I'll tell you, I know I've been trying to find my own ideas on developing a startup because at home I've got elderly people and I don't have a proper um business today or a startup or a mechanism today to help my elders at home. So there is an opportunity out there. Now, if I can own that problem, which I understand that problem is there, and I can solve that problem using my own ways, there's a good chances because I know the problem. So that is where I would say own the problem, then your chances of failure are lesser.
Okay, great, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, anything else, sir?
From participants, any questions?
Yeah, I'll just stop share this. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody you can ask. मराठी मध्ये पण विचारू शकता, हिंदी मध्ये पण, काय, no issues.
I think there is no question from anyone, from participants.
Okay.
So now we have now reached to end of the session. It's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of MIT College of Management and Computer Applications, MIT ADT University, Pune. I extend my heartfelt vote of thanks to our esteemed speakers, Professor Srinivas Moharil sir, for delivering such an insightful and inspiring session on building an agri startup and food brands. Sir, your practical knowledge and inspiring guidance have motivated us to think innovatively in the agribusiness sector. I sincerely thanks our Honorable Executive President, Professor Dr. Mangesh Karar sir, and our Honorable Executive Director, Professor Dr. Sunita Karar ma'am, for their constant encouragement and support in organizing such meaningful academic initiatives. My sincere gratitude also goes to all the faculty members and students from Agribusiness Management, the and organizing committee, and the technical team for their dedicated efforts in making this webinar success. I sincere thanks to our HOD Dr. Ashok Todmal sir for their constant encouragement and support in organizing such a meaningful program. Finally, I thanks each and everyone for your valuable participation and presence. Thanks to all and have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.